everyone to Talking Tuesdays. I'll be introducing our guest today, Adriana Rodriguez, but first we can go around and everyone can introduce themselves. I'm Adriana. I'm a student assistant here at LUSHC.
I'm Isabella de Souza. Nice to meet you.
I'm Katie. I'm a graduate assistant here.
I'm Marianne Mahoney. I'm the director and a history professor, and Steve Minkler encouraged us to get in touch with you. Yeah?
Thank you. Yes. Thank you.
My name is Martin Reina. I'm a worker here and also a political science major.
Welcome.
My name's Jacob. I'm a worker here. I'm secondary history education major.
Super.
Hi, I'm Guzman Young, and I'm the university assistant.
Wonderful. Well, welcome everyone. My name is Adriana Rodriguez. I am the executive director for the Spanish community of Wallingford, also known as SCOW. So thank you. It's really nice to see a room full of people that are just look genuinely happy and thank you because you guys are the future. So thank you.
Well, I think I might be the present or the past, but they're the future.
Okay, so Adriana Rodriguez was born and raised in Wallingford, Connecticut. Growing up in Wallingford and spending the summer with her family in Mexico allowed her to maintain a strong connection to her Mexican roots, while embracing her American culture. Her background is in education, and she has gained a wealth of experience in the field during the years working for the Wallingford Public Schools and Wallingford Public Library. Adriana's affiliation with the Spanish community of Wallingford began as a volunteer in 2003. In 2006, she was hired as a part-time administrative assistant. She worked in several positions within the agency, gaining experience in many different aspects of the organization. Eventually, she became the program director, and in 2019, she became SCOW's executive director. As executive director of SCOW, Adriana plans to continue responding to the needs of the community and enabling immigrants to share their rich, varied cultures and succeed in U.S. society. Her purpose is to serve as a friend, mentor, leader, and role model in the community. Welcome.
Super. Well, thank you so much for the introduction. And I'll start off talking a little bit about, how I started here, which my little bio says a little bit about it, but I'll talk a little bit more about how my growing up in Wallingford. My name is Adriana. I go by Adriana, but my real name is Gloria. So I just want to start off with there. I am Mexican. I am first generation Mexican American, and growing up with two cultures was challenging yet enriching, because just starting off with my name, I was known as Gloria. I was known as Adriana. I was a Mexican, but I'm also American. So I think that my upbringing was always going back and forth. Why do you go by Adriana if your name is Gloria? Why do you not go to sleepovers? I think that growing up, I really had to learn who I was, my identity. So my parents are from this small village called Lagunillas in Michoacan, Mexico. In the 80s, they moved to Texas for work opportunities. And then there was an opportunity in Wallingford, Connecticut to work in a steel company. So my father was like, let's move, just like that, for thinking about our future. Him being very young as well, I think that we come from families that are very resilient, always thinking of the future. So that's always been instilled in me. Growing up in Wallingford, I was one out of probably three in my whole class that was Latina or of a different culture. So for me, it was always so challenging of, why do people not have my curly hair? Why am I a little tanner? But why can I understand two languages? As a child, I feel like children are so smart and brilliant and just so interesting because so much goes through our minds, right? I could tell you in kindergarten, I was asking myself these questions, but I was just like, well, I come to school, I speak English, I go home, I speak Spanish. I felt like my two cultures were very different. And I'm not sure if anyone kind of had the same experience. But it wasn't until I would say fourth grade when the principal came in and said, you have a new student. His name is Emmanuel and he's from Mexico. I was so excited. I'm like, I'm from Mexico too. The first connection, we're from, my family's from Mexico. He's from Mexico. What happened next? They put him right next to me. They sat him right next to me and he just put his head down. And I'm like, hi, I'm Adriana. Why are you sad? he didn't answer me. So then I'm like, well, he's from Mexico. Maybe he speaks Spanish. So I'm like, hola, soy Adriana, hablo español. He lifts up his head and just looks at me. And I'm like, that's it. I can connect with people through my first language. And that is special because in my entire class, neither the teacher or my classmates were able to connect with him, to even just have him feel that trust or just feel welcome. So from that day, I knew that's it. I have to use what I always thought was weird or different with something positive. And I told my friend Manuel, I'm your first best friend. I speak Spanish, I speak English, and I will teach you what to eat at lunch, what not to eat at lunch, and what to do. And I think it really kicked it off of my interest in really embracing my two cultures. I think that's, as a Mexican American, you don't really realize how amazing it is, the different traditions. I think that's, being able to really embrace your roots is so special, but it also, when you transition as adults, you're really able to see the bigger picture. So that was my little example of, when my friend Emmanuel came and he learned English through obviously English language teachers, through my conversation. And I told him, like, you have to watch TV, everything's in English, so you'll learn. But it was that social connection, that trust. You go into a room, you may see someone who has curly hair like you feel like, okay, I can connect with someone. You see someone who may look like you, like, okay, that instant connection. I realized the importance of representation, of being inclusive, of being represented wherever you go, the value that it brings. So that was elementary school. Let's move on to middle school. Again, I grew up in Wallingford, Connecticut, which I still live in Wallingford, and obviously I work here. We had now new people. We had new students moving in from Peru, from Ecuador. And again, I get excited because I'm like, I know they speak Spanish and I get to use my language. They come in, again, no English, but right away I'm like, I speak Spanish. I'm going to tell you, again, what to eat, what not to eat, what to do, what not to do, and how to stay out of trouble. But I started learning that the greater community, the greater of the classrooms didn't really realize that when I was talking Spanish, it wasn't because I was talking about how the class, the classroom, the teacher, or because of the subject, but we were just talking in a language that we could connect. But I realized that everyone around us did not understand, and they felt some sort of way, where I started getting comments like, do not speak Spanish, only speak English. And it blew my mind. And that's when I was like, wait, we have a new classmate. We have a new peer who just got here and speaks absolutely no English. But now we're told not to speak the only language that connects us. So that's when I realized we need to educate everyone around us about the importance of embracing diversity, embracing the different cultures, but also understanding that it's part of the learning curve. Put yourselves in my friend's shoes. You move to Italy. Can you learn Italian in 1 year, the language, the culture, and be able to go to school, work? I know I could not do all that in a week, a month, or a year. So how can we, assume that this student who just moved in, just tell him, stop speaking the only language, or stop speaking the language that you two are speaking? So that's when, again, I realized we need more people to understand the importance of diversity, representation, but also to be understanding. So that was middle school. Now we're moving on to high school. More diverse. So my classmates, now I have many friends who I speak in English to and in Spanish, and we speak Spanglish. I love it. But now let's talk about traditions. In other countries, prom. I mean, we have prom in high school, but in Mexico, speaking about women playing football and powder puff, prom, college, those are topics that when I would go home and be like, okay, mom, how do I enroll to college? She'd be like, yo no sé, vas a la escuela, tus maestros te van a enseñar. They would say, I don't know. That's what you go to school for. And that's when I realized, I'm like, okay, home, I don't really have those cheerleaders of support because they don't know, because it's a whole nother school system, right? So I would go to school, but I was a teenager. I was timid to go to the guidance counselor. I would try, but they weren't there, or I would not really get that guidance. And I feel like I would just be like, I guess I'm not smart enough, or, oh, eventually someone will show me the way. Well, come senior year, my friends and I were like, wait, we haven't really visited other universities. I haven't applied. I don't even know what I'm supposed to do. And that's when I realized we need more mentors. We need additional Latinos or other adults who could help guide us, because a lot of us are first generation. So throughout my kind of upbringing and education through the school systems, I realized that the importance of representation of diverse cultures is so important, because there's probably that one student who may look at you and say, you went through the same, you're the same path as me, or your parents also do not have formal education in this country, or you speak the second language that I speak. So to me, I see you all, and you are, when I say you are the future, you really are the future in representation, mentorship, but also to be the voice for those who cannot speak, who are scared to speak. And, my little examples I share with you because they kind of put that fire underneath me and would say, Adriana, if you don't work very hard to work at a school or to work at an organization, then there's probably so many generations, after you that perhaps will also get lost just like you. So once I graduated high school, I kind of took it very seriously of paving the path for my community, for my two younger siblings, but also while paving the path for the generations after me so they could learn from my mistakes, but to pave the path moving forward to perhaps be in a role where students, where leaders, or where people in general can learn from me. And I feel like through my time at Scout, I have done that because I've started as a volunteer, and that's where I'm going to get to. Volunteering, networking is so important. Why? You get to, first of all, learn skills, the do's, the don'ts. You get to observe people. You get to ask questions, but you get to be in an environment that being at home, watching Netflix, video games, you really won't. So take volunteering as an opportunity to grow and learn skills and network, because you create these relationships with people of different ages, with people younger than you, but people older than you. And just know everyone is always watching. Will make that connection with you. They'll always remember you. Or when you're in a position to apply, you're going to need that recommendation and create those relationships. So I started as a volunteer at Scout at 13 years old. Can you believe it? 13 years old. I know I look back and I'm like, I was a child, but I think again, my experiences growing up really kind of, to me, it was very important to give back. And when I started volunteering, I started tutoring, kind of like with my pal Emmanuel in fourth grade. There was a lot of students moving to Wallingford from different countries that really needed practice with their English. And I realized that knowing the language to go to school, to work, to participate in soccer, it was very important. And in school, this is just not enough time. So why not play games, flashcards, have conversations? That's how you can really grow your vocabulary. So I did that. And then at 16 years old, the executive director then noticed my commitment, noticed my responsibility with my tutoring job. And they offered me a part-time administrative assistant position. I was honored, but then I was like, I have no idea what I'm supposed to do. But I'm like, let's ask questions. And as an administrative assistant, you learn the importance of communication. And that's the next kind of like advice I would give everyone here. Communication is key. Really take the opportunity to brush on those skills. if it's email etiquette, a conversation etiquette, even texting. There's so many things. Learn ways, but always make those connections. The introduction and that conclusion are so important because, again, someone will always remember you. And I think that those are skills that you learn. So I would answer the calls in English and in Spanish. And that's when I realized, wow, the Spanish I learned growing up was definitely not the formal Spanish needing to know in an office or in a school setting. So that's when I realized the importance to continue learning and Spanish. So I grew up here in the United States. So I never went to a school to learn Spanish other than, high school and, and college courses. But I also recommend that you all take opportunities to brush up on if you speak Spanish or another language, to really tighten those grammar skills, vocabulary, speaking and listening. So what would I do here? Read the dictionary. They would ask me, Adriana, can you translate this letter? There was a few words where I was like, how do you say fluency in Spanish? What is fluency in English? I mean, there's little things that you learn, throughout your career, but take those opportunities every day. Download an app or read articles in another language, because that just enriches your vocabulary, but also that you never know when there will be an opportunity where you need to provide interpretation or translation services, but it brings the value to you being bilingual. So I started as an administrative assistant. I was working in elementary school. I worked in elementary school for 7 years. So I worked with English language learners. So I worked with children from Bangladesh, Turkey, Venezuela, Mexico, Ecuador, many countries. But that's when so then I was promoted to Children and Youth Program Coordinator, then eventually the program director position. And that is when I developed the program Adelante America. What is Adelante America? It's an after-school youth leadership program for high school students to pave the path so they could graduate, because back then 1 in 4 were dropping out. And that's when I was like, but why are the Latinos dropping out? But then I remembered my high school experience. No one reinforced the importance of graduating at home. No one reinforced the importance of a degree. No one reinforced the importance of thinking of your future. And that's when I realized Adelante America is going to do that. Adelante America is going to be your cheerleader. Adelante is going to be that mentor that we needed, that guidance that we needed, or that person to tell you, this is the application process to college, to a trade school, or this is how you make it after high school. So Adelante America focuses on leadership skills, employability skills, working as a team, the importance of community service, community involvement, career exploration. But one of the most important pieces of Adelante is understanding who you are and that's race, your heritage, and embracing it. I think that when I mentioned growing up, I felt like I was in 2 different worlds, is because I didn't know the beauty until I got older about being Mexican American. And I think that this program really talked the importance about embracing and being proud of both your cultures, or all your cultures, not to be shy of one or the other, because at one point I wasn't Mexican enough, I wasn't American enough, and I just felt like I wasn't enough. But through Adelante America, we talk about the importance that you are enough and you are very special, and that you should never hide who you are, embrace it and share it and be proud of all your cultures. So we really talk about what is being a Latino, a Hispanic, the difference between race and all this language. So Adelante America has now been running for 12 years, and it's for Hispanic and Latino youth. And our goal is for the students to graduate with a post-high school plan. It being college, trade school, working full-time, starting a business, traveling the world, whatever it may be, but being successful and having the right tools and having trusting adults around you to go to if you have a question about FAFSA, or if you have a question about how do I, navigate my email, or how do you write a resume, or what do you wear to your first interview? Because a lot of us, it's a lot of firsts, and first can be scary. You can't Google it, but what better than someone who's been through that experience to say, business casual means this. I actually, funny because I received a text message from a student yesterday saying, Adriana, I have an interview tomorrow. What is business casual? And I think about it, she could have just Googled it, but she really wanted that reinforcement from an adult, from a mentor, someone who's been there. So, and that's the human touch, that kind of additional cheerleader, the additional support. And that's what, what we want to do, and what Adelante is. And Adelante America was very successful, that we decided that we need to start sooner and really prepare our students. So we started a program called Pasos Adelante. Pasos Adelante is for middle school students, because we realize we go into high school not understanding what AP classes are, what electives are, what the SATs. So we decided with Pasos Adelante, we could prepare them for high school. So that way, rather in high school, they're preparing for college or for just graduating. And we realized that we need a presence in the school. So we have also started after school clubs in the 2 high schools. Partnering with the school, we felt that we needed that support. And by being in the schools, we were able to closely connect them with the guidance counselors, with the teachers, or really help them with the school academics so they could be successful in school as well. So throughout the years, that has been my baby. I think creating a program that not resolved, but would answer some of the questions that I had through middle school and high school, but also talking about being the voice of, a different, population, but also saying that, you could be Latino, you could be a different culture. That's okay to share it and speak Spanish and embrace Dia de los Muertos and the carnavales. I think that, to me, that was very important, but also representing, being at the school as Latinos, and for the students to see a Latina, talking to the principal, bringing them to the guidance counselor, I felt like was very meaningful. And so I was a program director, and I'm bouncing back and forth. So if you get lost, please let me know. In 2018, I received the opportunity to apply for the executive director position. So guess what I said? What do you think I said when I was invited to apply?
Yes.
Yes.
I actually said, thank you, but no, thank you. So, and I sat down. I was so confident to say, no, thank you. And that's when everyone in the room was like, Adriana just said no to a wonderful opportunity. But I think, and I share this because I was younger too. So I was like, I'm not good enough. So then comes my adult, my transitioning into careers when I'm like, oh, I don't have the experience. Oh, I've never, it's a business to run, nonprofit. I've only worked with children. My education is, working with youth and families. I don't think I'm qualified enough. I don't think I'm good enough. I don't think that I would be accepted. That comes again, the whole now mentorship in the career work, professional world. So, but I was very confident that I was like, no, I'm not going to apply. The then executive director and board of directors, sat down with me. They're like, well, we think this would be a wonderful opportunity. And that's when that whole nervousness came in. And I'm like, I just don't think I could do this. I don't think I'm qualified. And I feel like in here too, I was just nervous that I was comfortable in my program director position and I loved what I did, but I never could see myself, or I just didn't think I could excel. But that's when I realized, if people who believe in you think you could take on this position, always accept it. So eventually I did transition into the interim executive director position, and I was there for 7 months. And then they voted me in to be executive director. But reflecting, I really want to share with everyone here is that sometimes we doubt ourselves when we really are capable, and we need to start kind of talking to ourselves of, yes, we can. Because again, the whole I'm first generation came to mind. I'm the first in my family. I'm the first, all the first. I think that sometimes that takes over, right? But I think that one suggestion and guidance I give to all of you is always say you can do this, and everything is doable. Just find mentors, work hard, but you are capable of doing everything that you set your mind to. And I kind of gave examples of my upbringing and my experience because I have experienced a lot of successes. But many, not failures, but many times where I felt like I was not good enough, or I just didn't think I was capable of, because there was no one in front of me. There was no one before me. So kind of going back to, that's why it's so important for all of you to be in front. So people who are going into positions, children or teenagers, could say, wow, I look up to all of them. I can be just like them. So for me, I am so proud to see you here and so proud to talk to you, because we need more leaders. We need more Latino leaders, representation. So when there's someone looking to take on a position or apply for a job, they could kind of look to you and say, wow, if Jacob could do it, if Sabrina could do it, so can I. And I feel like we need more of you in leadership roles, as teachers, as business owners, as just leading organizations, because many people are looking up to you. And that's a little bit of my story. And I did just want to conclude, say that I won the Latina Champion Award a couple months ago. And it was such a humbling experience, because when I started this role, I didn't think I was capable. I didn't think I was good enough. But it's that kind of mentality where I feel like, reflecting, right? I feel like I didn't have a mentor, someone to look up to, because in my space, there's not many Hispanic or diverse or immigrant leaders. And it's hard for me to connect or say, maybe I was thinking I shouldn't be in this role, right? But I think everyone in this room here, and everyone who's listening, is capable if you set your mind to it, if you work hard, ask questions, if you listening is a big skill. You're definitely capable. And I believe in everyone here, and really hope to, and I encourage you all to participate and to take on the roles. And if I could do it, you all could definitely do it. I'm a millennial. I am Mexican American, first generation, and I'm a Latina, and I am very proud of it. So thank you so much. I hope that didn't go over my time. If I did, I apologize.
I have a question. What did you major in college?
In education. So I did early education. So kind of, I wanted to open a bilingual daycare. That was kind of my plan. I always wanted helping children. And then I worked in an elementary school as a bilingual ELL tutor. And I was like, perhaps not a bilingual daycare. I had that whole entrepreneurship and working with the families. But then I realized the bigger impact you could do maybe in a school, working with the newcomers, the new families, because I experienced it through my experience. But then as I transitioned, and I was working at SCOW, to the different roles, I realized that whole community piece, the after school, the importance of the whole programming after school is as important as schooling during the day. And that's what I did for many, many years. And I loved working with the children and teens and their families. And now I'm able to do that at a bigger capacity, looking for programming, for funding to have programming at our organization to support the families.
So what do you think is like the most interesting or most important thing that you've learned at SCOW?
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, what do you think is the most interesting or most important thing that you've learned in your time at SCOW?
Yes. I think that one of the most important things that I've learned in my kind of tenure here is let's say I've had different hats, But I think personally, to be successful in my position, I'll start off there. I think one of the biggest things that I've learned is really ask questions and listen. I think that sometimes we go into a role where we assume we need to know everything and answer questions and be prepared. But sometimes it just really takes a whole year or it takes weeks for you to really take it all in, observe, or really understand the position or understand your role. So I think that really asking questions and listening, I feel like that was something very important. So then you could be confident in answering the questions or being able to act on it. So I think that has been something that I've learned. And I think that confidence comes with time and experience for sure. And I think that more on as a bigger scale, I think that one of the biggest things is that just your voice, being able to represent a specific target population is so powerful because there's so many people, so many children, teens, and families that are not able to express what they're going through or how they're feeling. So I think that's being able to be the voice for many has been something that I've learned that's very powerful, especially during the pandemic. I think that many of our constituents and our families face hardships due to many things. And I think that really listening and then being able to speak upon the issues was very powerful and eye-opening. Thank you.
You were talking about like how passionate you are about like your culture, both of your culture and all that. And I was thinking about a conversation that I had with my friend like 2 weeks ago. She's Brazilian, and this year she decided to drop out of high school and all that. Mm. And we were having this conversation, and she was like, Isabel, you gotta understand that here, we are just like numbers. They don't care about us. Like, that's what she told me. So she was like, I love being Brazilian, but they would never accept me here. And we were having that conversation, and you were just like so, how you call it, sad to see her saying that. And now you're here like talking about how passionate you're about being Mexican and then be American, and I was just thinking about it.
No, and thank you for sharing that, because I feel like we all go through that point where we say, you know, oh, I need to hide that I'm Hispanic, or I need to straighten my hair, or I need to fit in. And by fitting in, it has to look a certain way. But I think that's something that, again, it's what we talk about. And I think through social media and through all the initiatives of diversity, equity, and inclusion and everything is so important, because we're not supposed to fit in this bubble, right? And I think that we really need the United States, you know, America is a melting pot of the world. So there's not really defined to what we're supposed to look like. And it makes me so sad to hear that your friend feels like she's not good enough. And I think that that's why it's so important to really share our cultures, to learn from each other and just representing, because I think that being different it allows us to learn from each other and makes this community, this country so unique. And it's so special too. It would be so boring if we were all the same.
So kind of like going off that, how in your life have you bounced back from like setbacks and things like that?
Really good question. I think that just perseverance and not giving up and thinking of my parents. My parents came to this country with nothing, not knowing the language, not knowing if they would ever see their family again, with just nothing. And to see them, you know, being able to learn the language. My mother became a US citizen, buying their first home. I really saw their work ethic, their resilience. And I think that's every time I feel like I'm not good enough or I can't do it, I always think of them, because they came here and they were 20 and they were 19 and 21. And they were able to really just start from zero and alone and just being able to learn the language again, really accomplish all these huge goals, makes me kind of really, I ponder all the time and think, wow, if they can, I could also, I could get up and do it. I could start over. And I think that just always thinking of the efforts and the hard work that my parents really strive for our future, for my brothers and I. And I think that that is probably why my brother went into social work, and my other brother, he actually is an electrician and kind of followed the pathway of my father. And I'm in, in a nonprofit sector because always thinking of serving and helping others. And I think again, it was that kind of that seed that my parents planted in. You have to work hard, never give up, and try again. And how can you complain when I'm like, my mother didn't even know English and she had to register me to school. So, and I at least have the language, or at least I have ways to do certain things. So I try not to complain when I think of them.
So, Adriana, I was just going to say your story is really wonderful, at least in part because Wallingford is sort of famous as not being the place in Connecticut that's most open to diversity, I guess, to put it mildly. Yeah, I mean, it's rather famous for being the opposite within the state.
Mm-hmm. And it's very interesting you say that, because I hear that all the time when I present at meetings or when I travel. I say I'm from Wallingford. They're like, Wallingford, and then they'll connect it with different things. But interesting enough, so SCOW is well received. I feel like SCOW is a gem for the community, and we work closely with the departments in town, with the mayor, with everyone, and they really embrace diversity, and they celebrate all the different cultures. And what I love is that SCOW is at the table for everything, and all the committees and all the meetings. And I appreciate that they listen to SCOW when they're making decisions or being inclusive, or including, the different cultures. And I really appreciate that, because it speaks volumes. It speaks volumes that they partner with SCOW, that they think of SCOW. We just got a proclamation for Hispanic Heritage Month that just started a couple years ago. And anytime we are doing an initiative, the community is so welcoming and receiving. But something that throughout the years we have created through the whole advocacy, through the whole participation. And that's kind of where I encourage you all, by volunteering, by participating, by being there, is very important to represent the different cultures.
I have a question about funding. Does your organization have like a base fund, or do you have to apply for grants? How do you keep running your organization?
Very good questions. So we are a nonprofit. We're a 501c3, and nonprofits, as you know, we depend a lot on fundraising efforts, grants, and donations. So SCOW turned 50 years old this year in Wallingford, which is huge. We've been serving the community for 50 years. But unfortunately, we lost state funding last year. And that was 30% of our operational budget. Luckily, knock on wood, we've survived, and our funding comes from our annual fundraiser, which we're having one on this month, September 29th, at the Farms Country Club. We apply to grants available and donations. We do receive a little money from the town of Wallingford, which is fantastic. And our building is a town building, which helps us a lot. So we are constantly raising funds, participating in Giving Tuesday, applying and seeking grant opportunities and donations. So it's partly fundraising, grants, and donations.
Thank you.
Thank you these are wonderful questions. And I just want to say again, you guys have been wonderful, and I really appreciate the invitation, and I apologize again for being late, but I really encourage you to continue what you're doing, and please visit SCOW or reach out to me. I have a wonderful team who is as passionate or even more than I am, and it's also about working together. Nothing is possible without your team, and that's something that I really I thank my team every day, because together you can make the difference. Together you can move forward.
Yeah.
Sí se puede.
Sí se puede.
Sí, sí, sí.
So, Adriana, I have to buzz because I have class in 20 minutes, right? But thank you so much for coming. I'm sure the students have more questions, but if nothing, we're going to add you to our mailing list, right? And if nothing else, on October 14th, which is a Friday, in the late afternoon, evening, we're going to have an open house. And we really hope that you can join us and anyone you want to bring with you.
Definitely. I'll be on the lookout for the email, for the newsletter, and I'll definitely be there to meet you in person and just
That would be great.
celebrate what you're doing. Thank you
All
so much. Muchísimas gracias. Bye.
Adios, Adriana.
Adios.